I don't have time for this. I'm sure that's something we've all said at some point. I don't have time. When an opportunity comes along and we think it's going to take some time, I don't have time for that. Or when you're in business, you're trying to maybe recruit someone into your business and they give you that excuse, I don't have time. I would love to do this thing, but I just don't have time. I don't have enough time. But is that really the case? Is it really true that we don't have time? Or is it that, number one, it's not important enough for us to make time, or we don't realize how important it is that we should make time? It's funny, I heard someone say, oh, I just don't have enough time to spend with my kids. And I said, well, it's not that you don't have enough time, it's that you just don't use the time. You don't prioritize the time that way. Morning, Alan. Oh, by the way, if you're watching on Facebook or, comment in below, hashtag live, hashtag replay, if you're watching live or replay. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, love to hear your kind of time tips in the comments below as well. And if you're on Instagram, then hello. Same thing, I guess. So, it's funny, we say, I don't have time. And it's so often not the case. If you think about it, we all have 168 hours in every single week, okay? So if you add up all the hours in the week, it's 168 hours. And all of us basically have the same amount of time in every week, but some people become billionaires using their time and other people stay broke using their time. Some people achieve great things and some people don't. And yet we all have the same amount of time. I guess unless it's your last week, you might have less. So it's not really about time. It's about time management. It's about what we do with our time. How do we spend our time? How do we invest our time? How do we waste our time? Okay. Where do we spend? Where do we invest? Where do we waste? So for example, if you're saying, I don't have time, and spending time, I know, watching EastEnders, unless it's your job to review EastEnders, I would suggest that's not a good use of time. That's a waste of time. It's not an investment of time. It's not going to give you any kind of return unless your job is to write reviews or articles or whatever. It's not a good use of time. So let's think about it. One of the things I would always suggest that you do, and I coach people to do this, is to do an audit of your time. So look at your 168 hours a week, and just maybe you could even do this. You get a piece of paper, write down, okay, how many hours do I sleep per night? Maybe you get a full good 8 hours, right? So 8 hours. So if you do that every single day, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, that's 56 hours out of your 168 hours that you are sleeping, okay? Obviously, you've got to sleep, you've got to eat, right? So, thinking about cooking or eating out or eating, cooking and eating, you got to do this for you, but I would suggest maybe a couple of hours a day that you might spend on, breakfast, lunch, dinner, couple of hours, maybe more for you, but let's say a couple of hours. So 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. And again, maybe on the weekends, it'll be a bit more or whatever, but just work out the figure for you. A couple of hours a day on average, say, some might be less, some might be more. But you're looking at another 14 hours in your day. Maybe you go to work. You work in a job or you've got a business and you put so many hours in. Maybe you're putting in sort of, 7.5 hours a day, including traveling back and forward. I guess your lunch breaks and stuff like that. So maybe 7.5 hours a day. So a lot of people do like 38-hour weeks, right? So you got 38 hours that you work in your job, probably not including lunch breaks. Then you've got to travel back and forth to work. Hopefully you live maybe you work from home, so you don't have any travel time. Maybe you live half an hour from your work. Let's assume that you travel a bit on the weekends, maybe. Maybe you do an hour travel a day, on the weekends and at work, So let's say another 7 hours travel. Again, for you, it might be different. So you're looking at another 7 hours in your audit. What about things like exercising, social stuff, hanging out with your mates, watching the football, whatever it is? How many hours do you spend on social stuff? What you actually do in your downtime, if you like. Again, just as an example, maybe it's a couple of hours a day on average. Maybe you have some days you have 4 or 5 hours. Other days you have nothing. You don't really do a lot of that. Maybe it's if you've got kids, maybe you spend a couple of hours a day with your family, with your kids, an hour a day, whatever. And again, it could be more. So let's assume it's like, I don't know, 3 hours a day with family, relaxing, fun times, maybe a couple of hours a day with your friends. So that's like 5 hours a day on average with family, friends, hanging out, all that sort of stuff. I mean, you're looking at another 35 hours in that. And when you add all that up, you're talking about 150 hours a week that you've spent or invested or wasted. Hopefully all of those are kind of spending and investing. 150 hours a week that you spent. And you think, well, that seems like a lot, Steve, 150 hours, working, traveling, eating, sleeping, spending time with my family, all this stuff, 150 hours a week. Well, yeah, but you've got 168 hours in every week. So that means you've got 18 hours that are unaccounted for. That's 18 hours that you've got free, okay? And again, there might be a bit of a discrepancy there, depending on how many hours you spend on all those things. That's like 2.5 hours a day extra that you have. That's even with getting your 8 hours sleep. That's even with spending 3 hours a day with family and kids and what have you, and a few hours with friends. Still got 2.5 hours a day. So that's quite a bit of time every single day. That's 18 hours a week. If you think about it, your work week is 38 hours. You got 18 hours. That's like another part-time, job that you could do, or an income you could build. So when people say, well, I don't have time to be in a business or for a secondary income, I don't have time, it's just most of the time not true. And let's imagine that you are just swamped. I mean, literally, maybe you've got a second job already. Maybe you've got an extra commitment already that says, but Steve, I don't have that many hours. I only have, 5 hours a week more. I only have 7. I only have like 1 hour a day extra. I've got more stuff than you've listed. Okay. So then the key then is to find time. Okay. It's to create time. It's to organize your time audit, organize your circumstances so that you can create time in your life. And the great thing is it's really simple to do. It's kind of like one of these computer games, My son, plays games and there's all sorts of games out there that are similar, I guess, where you've got sort of a certain amount of bars in power in different categories, and there's certainly a certain amount allocated. So let's say it's 168. And if you take a little bit out of this one, it gives you more that you can put in other things. And it's exactly the same with our week, with our time. We just got to say, well, okay, what if I need more time? Well, okay, if I get up an hour earlier, go to bed an hour later, if I sleep 7 hours instead of 8 hours, well, I've just created 7 hours extra in my week. I mean, guys, that's an entire work day you've just created in your week. Now you've got an 8-day week instead of a 7, right? In terms of working hours. You want to create 2 days? Well, we can sleep on 6 hours a day, or maybe you do 6 hours and catch up on the weekend. But the bottom line is you can find another 7 to 10 hours just by restructuring. And there's also things you can do, like maybe you do spend time with friends and family. And there are periods where you say, well, I'm going for a certain goal. I've got this goal of freedom, which is a lot of our goals. Freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, freedom to do whatever we want, freedom to be out from underneath the thumb of a boss. Maybe that's the freedom you're looking for. Well, isn't it worth organizing our time and focusing on freeing up time so we can put our time, invest our time into something that actually gets us closer to that goal? Because here's the thing, guys, if you don't change anything, nothing's going to change. So whether it's looking at a business, whether it's looking at a side hustle, whatever it's looking at, then you've got to find the time to make it happen. You can't use the excuse, I don't have time, because we all have the same amount of time. You know, one of the things I love about what I do in my various kind of things is that I get to work from home, right? So I already saved a bunch of travel time. It wasn't before COVID, we used to have to go to people's houses and we'd see clients that way in that business. And then COVID hit, we all went online, no more travel time. I mean, how cool is that? You know, I'm sitting here in an apartment in Spain, the sun is out because not only no more travel time, but no more geographical boundaries either. You know, so just as a side note, if you want to know how you could do that too, especially if you're in the UK, then message me afterwards. I'm happy to share it with you. But it's really something that gives us that freedom to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, pretty much where we want to do it. And if that's something that's of interest to you, then certainly let me know. Also, I would go amiss without saying before I wrap this up that if you don't have a copy of my book, Mindset Skill Set, this is a phenomenal book. In fact, I talk all about giving yourself a time audit. In fact, there's an exercise in this book that teaches you how to give a time audit to yourself and tells you in a bit more detail what I just kind of taught today, as well as a load of other things as well. It's really packed. In fact, you know, I can't believe I packed so much stuff into this book, honestly. Now, here's the thing. You can buy it on Amazon and pay money for it. Okay, just type in Mindset Skill Set. You'll find it in there. Or you can actually get it for free. And all you've got to do to get it for free is go to www.mindsetskillset.net/free. And then just, you know, put your details in there and it will send you an e-copy for free. Okay, no money. And just, you know, the topics in here, they're worth, a lot. Okay. So I hope that was useful for you. Have an awesome rest of the day. Definitely put your comments below and let me know if you get my book too. And by all means, leave a review on Amazon if you'd like to do that as well. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Have an awesome rest of the day. And I don't have time. It's a myth. Take care. Bye-bye.